In this video, we're going to be talking about the Signia Pure Charge&Go BCT IX. It is the new flagship product from the brand, and in my opinion, this is the most well-rounded prescription hearing aid on the market at this time. I've spent over a month wearing this particular version of Signia's product, and I want to talk you through that experience, what I've learned so far. If we haven't yet met, my name's Blake Cadwell. I'm the co-founder at Soundly.com. We're one of the leading online destinations for hearing health research and shopping in the United States. If you like what you see in this video, take a second to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It helps this video reach more people. With that, let's dig in. So if you spent much time researching hearing aids, there's a good chance that you've seen this brand, Signia, pop up in various places. It is a prescription hearing aid, so fit by a professional, either in a local clinic or via telehealth. It can fit up to a mild to severe hearing loss, and it comes in this receiver and canal format, which is so common. The piece behind the ear has all of the brains and processes the sound. It sends the sound through this wire and into your ear canal, which helps you hear the world around you. The maker of this hearing aid is owned by a larger group called WS Audiology, which also makes Widex hearing aids and Sony hearing aids, which are one of our favorite over-the-counter brands. So why do we think that Signia is the most well-rounded prescription hearing aid on the market in early 2025? I'll break it all down, starting from the inside, and then we'll work our way outside. So we'll start with the sound processing and what's actually happening inside of this device. There's a lot of technology that goes into processing outside world sound, cleaning it up, and bringing it to your ears in a way that you can hear and understand. Now, interestingly, Signia was the first brand to introduce two separate chips inside of this tiny device. So inside of here, you've got two separate computer chips. Of course, you've got a battery, you've got lots of other technology. But the reason that they introduced two separate chips, which has now become a bit more common among their competitors, is that they wanted one chip to handle background noise and one chip to handle the sound of speech. And what that allows Signia to do is to adjust the sound of background noise and speech individually, to basically separate them and isolate them so you can pick out speech in a really crowded background noise situation. Now, I've spent months wearing each of the past few generations of Signia hearing aids, and I always notice that they do a great job of pulling out soft sounds and background noise that I want to hear and bringing them to me. This is very important to me because I have a 4-year-old daughter, and as I'm moving around the world with her, let's say I'm at a shopping mall, I need her voice to come to me, even though there's lots of other noise around me. Signia does a really fantastic job using their dual chip architecture, reaching out, grabbing her voice, and pulling it back to me. That's the sensation that I get when I wear Signia hearing aids. So from a sound processing perspective, I think Signia is among the best on the market. Interestingly, they don't use as many buzzwords about AI. Some of the other leading prescription hearing aids on the market, ReSound, Phonak, and even Oticon, are talking a lot about artificial intelligence, and they're using these really dramatic artificial intelligence filters to drop down background noise. Signia doesn't really do that. They're creating a blend between the two where they are impacting background noise and speech in a pretty dramatic way. They are using machine learning and probably AI, but it's not a huge focus. So it's interesting when I compare this product to some of the other leaders on the market, there's not a setting that gives me that same dramatic drop in background noise, but the overall experience with Signia is really, really strong. And it's the product that I tend to reach for the most when I'm going into really dynamic situations where I know that I need to hear my best. So that's the sound processing inside the hearing aid. The other things to think about inside the hearing aid are battery life and Bluetooth connectivity. So on the battery life front, Signia has one of the longest lasting batteries on the market. If you drop your hearing aids into this charger, you pull them out in the morning, you should get something like 36 hours on a single charge. So obviously more than a full day. As long as you drop your hearing aids back into their charger at night, you should really never run out of battery with this product. The other thing that I love is that their chargers are pretty modern and sleek, and they have a carried battery inside. So when I go on a work trip, I typically just take the case. I'm able to get a full week of power using the case and of course the hearing aids inside of my ears. Now, one area of relative weakness for Signia in the past is their Bluetooth connectivity. Just like most prescription leaders, they were using MFI and ASHA protocol, which are these special accessibility setting protocols inside of your phone to connect to Bluetooth. That comes with some glitchiness and some limitations, specifically for Android users. So Android users would have to hold their phone up to their mouth while they're talking on a phone call, instead of the microphones on board the hearing aids picking up outbound sound. So this was a relative weakness for Signia hearing aids in 2023, 2024, as some of their competitors were adding more robust Bluetooth connection. So in February 2025, Signia launched their new flagship version, which most folks will get access to, and that is the BCT IX. And the BTC is really a signifier that they've shifted their Bluetooth connection into a standard Bluetooth Classic format. So without getting too technical, essentially what this means is that you will connect to your hearing aids through either the Signia app or through your main settings section. You don't have to go into accessibility and pair the hearing aids in the way that you typically would have if you use the accessibility settings for your iPhone or your Android. So the real world implications of this is that the Bluetooth connection is much easier to establish if you are the user of this hearing aid. If it disconnects for some reason, you just simply go back into your main Bluetooth settings and reconnect to the hearing aids, just like you would a pair of headphones. Interestingly, Signia borrowed from Phonak, which has used Bluetooth Classic connection for years and sort of been a market leader, especially for Android users. And now they've brought on that same technology. So in my view, when we're looking at the inside of this hearing aid, it's one of the best-in-class offerings on the market. Great sound, really strong battery, and now a more universal Bluetooth connection. So let's move outward into the body of the hearing aid. The Signia hearing aid has always been one of the smaller, more compact devices on the market, which is impressive given its long battery life. It's just a little bit bigger than the ReSound Vivia, but smaller than everything else on the market. Now with the new BTC version, Signia made a couple of minor adjustments to the buttons to make them more easily pushable. The old version, it felt a little bit hard to know whether you're hitting the up button or the down button or the middle button. The buttons are now a little bit easier to feel, so I like that small change. It definitely impacts people who have less sensitivity in their fingertips. The other thing to note is that Signia has the ear tips that I find the most comfortable on the market. In fact, and my audiologist would not recommend this to most folks, I take Signia tips and I put them on other hearing aids when I'm demoing those hearing aids. So if I am using a hearing aid from a different manufacturer, I'll put the ear tips from a Signia device onto that hearing aid. The reason being, I just find these are the most comfortable inside of my ears. They help close out the world to just that right degree, and they hug my ear canals in a really great way. So from a comfort perspective, you have a pretty small hearing aid and really comfortable ear tips. Now those are little things compared to the overall sound quality, but they actually make a pretty big difference as a hearing aid wearer who has devices in their ear for 12 hours a day. The last really important thing to know about Signia hearing aids are the app experience. And this is one of the areas that I think Signia continues to excel with a well-rounded, not always flashy, but a well-rounded product. So when you open up the Signia app, you can do all the normal stuff. You can turn up the volume, you can change programs. They have a mask mode, which is kind of interesting. But the thing that I find the most interesting about Signia's app experience is something called Signia Assistant. So I've actually found myself using Signia Assistant quite a bit after my initial fitting with this product. And the way it works is you simply open it up. It'll ask you a couple of questions like, what are you dealing with? Sound is too loud, sound is too quiet, something's too sharp. You follow a few prompts, then it'll make a live adjustment into your hearing aids. You can listen to that live adjustment right where you are, wherever you're at, and you can decide if you want to keep it or if you want to revert back to the original. I've found that this is one of the most interesting app features that is in existence. Yes, in most hearing aid apps, you can open up an EQ and make lots of adjustments. You can turn up the volume, you can change programs. Phonak and Starkey have really robust apps that basically let you become the DJ. But this Signia Assistant gives me something else, and that is the ability to interact in natural language and get something back that I can react to and accept or reject it. I find that I've been accepting a lot of the changes that I'm making, and slowly, little by little, my hearing aids are getting better and better in my actual life experience. So I love how easy it is to use, and I think many folks will find it really helpful. A couple other features I love inside the Signia app are the health tracker, which will tell you how many steps you've taken, how long you've been in conversation throughout the day, which helps you understand how much you're interacting with others, and of course, your wear time. So how much time did you actually spend in your hearing aids, which is important as you're adjusting to the new devices. There's also a really strong teleaudiology connection inside of Signia hearing aids, which means that you can fit these hearing aids remotely. So they're great for access on the road, or if you're in a rural area and don't want to go into a local clinic. Okay, so those are some of the reasons that we find this to be one of the most well-rounded prescription devices on the market. But what are some of the drawbacks? What are you giving up if you go with Signia over another prescription brand? In my view, there are really a couple of things to think about. The first is that Signia, unlike Phonak and ReSound, is less aggressive about sound management. And that's partially because they're not bringing so much artificial intelligence into your hearing aids. So Within a ReSound hearing aid or a Phonak hearing aid, you can currently go into an AI mode that almost drops background noise away completely. In many cases, folks really like that, where they can drop away all the voices and they can hear what they're focused on. I personally feel like Signia does a pretty good job of isolating voices in background noise environments, but it is undoubtedly less aggressive in doing so. So Phonak and ReSound are more aggressive in that background noise environment. Another trade-off with Signia devices is that the Bluetooth connection, while it is universal using the BTC, can be a little bit less powerful than a market leader like Phonak. So Phonak will allow me to walk all the way around the building to the kitchen and still maintain connection with my phone when my phone is back here in the studio. Signia allows me to go maybe 50 feet away, but it starts to crackle just a little bit earlier. So in theory, the Bluetooth connection is a little bit weaker for a Signia product than when you look at something like Phonak. And finally, if you're looking at the full hearing health market, if you're thinking about OTC and prescription devices, Signia hearing aids are relatively more expensive than what you'd pay for an over-the-counter device. Our current best performing OTC hearing aid is the Sennheiser All Day Clear, which sells for about $1,000 for a pair. Signia hearing aids are typically going to cost you at least a few thousand, and if you're at a local clinic, might cost you up to $5,000 or $6,000 for a pair. Now, that's not surprising if you're looking across the prescription landscape, but it is something to consider if you're trying to hear better on a tighter budget. Overall, these drawbacks for many folks are outweighed by all of the advantages to the well-rounded Signia system that they have put together. We think this is one of, if not the best, well-rounded prescription product on the market, and we're always excited when folks say they want to get into a Signia product. If you're interested in learning more about Signia or want to know where to purchase your Signia hearing aids, you can drop down below. We'll include a link. If you have questions, head over to soundly.com. Our team would be happy to answer those questions, or drop comments below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks for your time and good luck with your research.